Hello, I am Mick. I am the one who hammers the backlog. And over the last year, year 3 of the Hammer the Backlog project, I have painted all of these minis. Let's spend the next couple of minutes taking a look at them and seeing how the project is going. Why don't we? So either welcome or welcome back to Hammer the Backlog. Hammer the Backlog is my ongoing project to get 30 years of collected, hoarded, unpainted Warhammer miniatures painted to a display standard that I'm happy with before Games Workshop come to my house and arrest me for having too much of their stock. So this video is going to be in 2 parts. Part 1 is going to be the year 3 quarter 4 review session, and part 2 is going to be the year 3 review. So let's get started, first of all, with the year 3 quarter 4 review. First things first, in every quarter I like to have a painting target and a meta target. This quarter the painting target was very clear, very straightforward. It was to get the Genestealer Cultist side of the Deathwatch Overkill box set painted, photographed and online. The funny thing was, I forgot to include a meta target this quarter because the meta target was so obvious I, like a big dum-dum, forgot to put it on a sheet anywhere. But the meta target obviously was to get the year 3 end of year review and year 4 planning session filmed, edited and uploaded to YouTube. So let's take a look at the painting target, the Deathwatch Overkill Genestealer Cultists. But before we do, let's address the elephant in the room. Regular viewers might have noticed that I like to include a little bit of subtle costuming to represent whatever I've painted over the last quarter. You might remember that during the High Elf quarter, for example, I grew out my long, beautiful, luxurious blonde hair. Or during the Chaos Dwarf quarter, I let my beard go wild and ragged. But with Genestealer cults being clammy, pale, bald-headed freaks bathed in purple light who are plotting the downfall of civilization, so anyway, painting targets. We divided the Genestealer Cult box set into a couple of different parts to make it easier to tackle. The first section was what I called in the quarterly planning session the 1st and 2nd generation hybrids, but I was wrong. These aren't the 1st and 2nd generation hybrids. These are the 3rd and 4th generation hybrids. I got my Genestealer life cycle completely mixed around. So these are the most human looking guys from this set. These are easily my favorite models from this collection. I love the 4th generation hybrids, the more or less normal men in 50s sci-fi spacesuits, bald, pale heads, occasional goggles, hand-me-down weapons. They look like they're from a lived-in sci-fi grim and gritty universe that really appeals to me. I hewed pretty closely to the box art on these, I will be honest. I didn't take any risks. They're not painted to a heavy metal standard by any stretch of the imagination, but I did stick broadly to the same scheme. I really like this Thunderhawk blue and pale grey colour scheme combination with splashes of red. Looks lovely. These were easily the most fun models to paint from this box because they have so many different surfaces and textures and colours with their ribbed spacesuits, their grey armour, their blue undershirts, their skin tones, their reds, their browns. You never end up spending too much time batch painting a particular colour or texture before you get to move on to something fun. The next set were the freakier fellas, the bigger freakier fellas. These are the 1st and 2nd generation hybrids. In the last video I called them the 3rd and 4th because I got all mixy-uppy, but these are the ones who are basically Genestealers in human clothes, more or less. I like these guys, I do. I like their little knives, I like their freaky faces, I like that they're becoming gene stealers, so they've got a bit of chitinous armor and they've got their sticky out tongues. But they didn't appeal to me quite as much as either the normal men in spacesuits of the 3rd and 4th generation or the pure strain gene stealers, that's hard to say, pure strain gene stealers of the original gene stealers. They're in a bit of an awkward position between the two. Maybe one of the problems I had here was that I painted them all with slightly different skin tones. Don't ask me why. Did I just make a mistake and not keep track of what I was doing and then just roll with it? Or was that the plan from the beginning? I don't remember. The next set are what I call the biggest freaks. 2 more hybrids here with big mining lasers. And one of the highlights of the box set, the aberrants, the big muscly pale fellas. These fellas are neither as big nor as muscly as you might think they are. They are basically normal human size, maybe somewhere between a human and an orc. They're nowhere near as big as a space marine, for example. I thoroughly enjoyed painting these. I went for a pallid witch flesh and pinkish purple colour scheme for them. Again, I gave each of the 4 of them a slightly different paint scheme on their skin. You can't really tell that if you look at them individually, but if you line them up in a row, you can see the difference. And the final set for the Gene Stealer Cult box set, or the Deathwatch Overkill Gene Stealer Cults, was the kind of leaders, the bunch of freaks. So we have the Patriarch, the first Gene Stealer, the big OG, original Gene Stealer of the cult. This model is highly reminiscent of the Broodlord model that nearly made me quit painting from Space Hulk from 2008. I like how his silhouette is all spiky and evil, and how he makes the shape of the Gene Stealer Cult symbol that a lot of the other models are wearing. My favourite model from this set was the Magus, the kind of psychic leader fellow with the outstretched hand. I really enjoyed painting his red. He's a modern, crisp, clean model with lovely straight lines and deep recesses. So he took a vibrant red very, very well. And he really stands out from the pack, both from this little group here and from the whole collection. So these guys were great fun to paint. There were lots of variety, but they were a hard slog in so much as I spent the entire quarter painting and thinking about and organising Gene Stealer cults. They were one thing, a bit of a monolith. So I am glad that they're finished and super happy about how well they look together with the Deathwatch Overkill Space Marines and having that whole set complete. So that's pretty much it for painting targets for this quarter. Get the Gene Stealer cult painted, photographed and online, and they're done. The meta target is, of course, to get the year 3 end of year video and the year 4 planning video filmed, edited and uploaded. And since you're watching this, that has happened. So quarter 4 of year 3, a big success. Let's move on to the year 3 overall review. So for year 3, as with every other year, I started the year with a number of set targets. There were 4 targets in year 3. Let's take a look at them one by one, look at the models and see what progress we made. The first target was to get my remaining 5th edition metal models painted, photographed and online. This was quarter 1 of year 3, and it feels like a different lifetime. It feels so long ago that I barely remember what was going through my mind when I was doing this. But having them here in front of me now, all painted up, great fun, a real achievement, so heavy you could put them in a sock and use them to kill a man. I got 5 Croxagores painted, which were a birthday gift nearly 2 years ago from my lovely lady wife. They were fantastic. I got Golfag's Ogres painted. I got the rest of my remaining Dogs of War set, which needed a lot of work on repairs, on finding bits, on substituting bits. Emil from Thankwall's Lair really came in clutch and sent me a couple of random stray bits that I never would have been able to find without him. Great stuff. I also got my 5 Iron Warriors 2nd edition Chaos Space Marines painted during that time. One of the biggest struggles of the year was painting my new Slan Mage Priest. He was the single most awkward-assed model I have ever assembled. So, models, 5th edition, metal models, painted, photographed and online, done. The second painting target was to get the Island of Blood High Elves painted, photographed and online. Island of Blood was the last box set for the original Warhammer Fantasy before it was reborn as the old world in the last couple of years. When I got that set, I fell in love with the elves and bought way too many of them and traded away the Skaven. So I didn't have a full set to do a box set for this year, but I did have the elves. I did a whole video on these, which you can watch linked below, but these were challenging. These are modern, crisp, highly detailed models of elves, particularly high elves. High elves who carry lots of details, they have individual scale mail, they demand to be painted in crisp, vibrant, organized, clean colors. They were really great fun, and the Prince on Griffin was a highlight, to be honest. The third painting target of the year was to get the Death Watch Overkill box set painted, photographed and online. We've already spent 10 minutes talking about the Genestealer cults, which are done, and in quarter 3 I got the Space Marines of that set, the 11 Space Marines and their 2 extra little bits and pieces, painted, photographed and online. They were really fun to paint, and having 9 chapters of Space Marines represented, basically 10 chapters of Space Marines represented, all of the first founding chapters and 1 Blood Raven, which might have inspired some decisions in the future, which I'll show you soon. They were fabulous to paint. The whole thing done. The most modern models I think I've painted for Hammer the Backlog so far. So they presented some challenges, some unique challenges, some differences between painting modern, highly detailed models and my lovely old-fashioned traditional models. But done. Death Watch Overkill, painted, photographed and online. Another full box set ticked off the list. Overall, for a painting year, this was great fun. I have a wide variety of models here from different systems, different eras. We have metal Warhammer 40,000 2nd edition models. I have plastic modern Warhammer 40,000 models. I have models which have been re-released for the old world for high elves. And I have some classic Dogs of War metals from the 90s. Just everything you could want from a Warhammer collection spread over the course of a year. The meta target for this year was to get a follow-up battle report for the Wrath of Thalaxlan battle filmed, edited, played, filmed. Played, filmed, edited, uploaded. That's the one. This was incredible fun. My arch nemesis Jim came into the studio with me, and over the course of an entire Saturday, we played the game, we videoed it, and I started editing the battle together. This was our first ever full rules game of Warhammer Fantasy, and we decided to make it Warhammer Fantasy 5th edition, playing my noble, heroic French Bretonnians against Jim's slimy, scaly lizard men. I don't want to give you any spoilers, but I will tell you that someone finally beat Jim in a game of tactics, and that someone was me. So go give that a watch. It's available on the channel, and I'll put a link to it somewhere in the description. So 4 targets for year 3 for Hammer the Backlog, and all 4 targets achieved. Hooray! A couple of other things happened in year 3 of Hammer the Backlog, which were very fun and are worth mentioning. First of all, Hammer the Backlog in year 3 got enough views and subscribers to join the YouTube partnership program, which was a very rewarding and surprising little thing that happened. It was never the intention of this channel, but it is fun to know that I have somehow found a tiny little niche of a niche of a niche where people enjoy hearing about these models, following along and planning their own projects. So thank you very much to everyone who liked, shared, subscribed and did all that YouTube stuff. I'm an official YouTube channel now. Woo! As part of that, I was invited as part of Hammer the Backlog to the first ever Irish Creator Conference for YouTube. It was a really surreal and strange experience to be invited to this and to meet lots of Irish YouTubers. I was getting to meet lovely people in every kind of field, from beauty influencers to lifestyle bloggers to mechanics to FIFA streamers. It was really great fun. And every time they asked me, what do you do? I was able to say, I tell you what I do. I talk to people about painting tiny little men. And they were baffled, let me tell you. That was fun. One of the other big things that happened to me this year was that companies started reaching out to Hammer the Backlog, which was surprising and hilarious. Merlinsminiatures.co.uk, a UK-based seller of tabletop gaming models, reached out to me and said, hey, Mick, we love Hammer the Backlog. We'd love to send you a unit to paint up. And how could I say no to that? So they sent me this 10-man squad of Perry Brothers Bretonian men-at-arms from the 90s. This would have been way too big a financial investment for me to buy because these are rare models which trawling through eBay would have taken me ages to find. So it was such a treat to have them sent to me and paint them up. I also got a chance to team up with Merlin's Miniatures again when we participated in the Miniatures for Mental Health for Mind project, in which I donated one of my precious miniatures. And I don't say that lightly because I get very attached to these things once they're painted. I donated my second edition Warhammer Chaos Warrior to a charity auction, with 100% of the profits going to Mind the Mental Health charity. So if it was one of you lovely people who bought that model and now has him in your collection, thank you very much for that. And I'm sure the people who are benefiting from that money, that cash injection, are also very thankful. So that's it for year 3. All targets achieved, lots of little nice surprises, no disasters overall. I don't want to leave this video though without picking a model of the year. In year 1, my favorite model of the year was the Green Knight model, which Andy from Mediocre Hobbies sent to me as a congratulations for finishing my Bretonian starter set. In year 2, my favorite model was my Chaos Dwarf Sorcerer Lord on Lamassu by Fables-L. So I think it's tradition now that every year I crown a model of the year. And this year for me, it's a pretty clear one, to be honest. My favorite model of the year was the High Elf Prince Ongriffin from the Island of Blood starter set. This is an absolutely beautiful model. For me, this is the peak of Warhammer Fantasy monster design. It's modern, it's crisp, it's clean, it's big, but not table-dominating huge. It is naturalistic, but also fantastical. There's an incredible flow and energy to it. It has real, recognizable animal parts combined into a fantasy creature. Look, I'm never going to turn down a chance to put this model back on the spinamajigger and show it to you. So that is the end of year 3 of Hammer the Backlog, a fantastically successful year. I painted this many models. You would think that I might have counted them so I could say there, that would have been a bit more dramatic, but I didn't, so roughly this many. Thank you very much for watching it. Thank you very much for all of the support, for the likes, for the shares, for the subscribes, for bringing other people to the channel. Especially big thank you to anybody who is following along and making their own commitments. This is a great time to jump on board. If you want to follow a similar system, you don't have to follow the Hammer the Backlog method exactly, but if you want to follow a similar system and set out a year's worth of targets, something that brings you excitement, break it up into quarters, break it up into weeks, and get your projects done like this, never a better time. Put a link down below in the comments what you'd like to work on next year. Hammer the Backlog is also a weekly blog. If you want to follow all of this progress but don't want to be looking at my face and hearing me yammer on, you can go to www.hammerthebacklog.com. That's updated every Thursday come hell or high water. If you don't want to hear about all this silly project management stuff and all you want to see is pictures of nice little models, Hammer the Backlog is also on Instagram at hammer_the_backlog, and therefore also Threads by Instagram. And Hammer the Backlog is still, rather surprisingly, still on X, although I don't know why, and on Blue Sky. So follow it on all of those places if you've got a bit of time. It's the same stuff though, but you know, everything counts. for some reason. Thank you for watching this though. I will see you very shortly, within the next couple of days, for the Year 4 planning session. This is how I imagine Genestealer cultists say goodbye. Oh God, that gets worse every time.